September 28, 1970, is the day when former Egyptian President Jamal Abdel Nasser died of a heart attack, and his friends told the world that he had this heart attack due to a broken heart. Not only this, about 1 year before this, former Prime Minister of Israel Levi Eshkol also died of a heart attack, and his wife also told the world that he had this heart attack due to a broken heart. Both these leaders were heartbroken because of the war that took place between Israel and Arab countries about 50 years ago. This war not only lasted for 6 days, but this war destroyed the Middle East, and the world knows it as the Six-Day War. The first attack in this war was made on the 5th of June 1967, but the foundation of this war was laid in 1964, because in 1964, Syria not only started building canals in the Golan Heights, which is situated between Syria and Israel, but also made a plan to divert the water of the Sea of Galilee with the help of those canals, which used to go from the Sea of Galilee to Israel. And here you should also know that there is an area of 1,800 kilometers between Syria and Israel from the Golan Heights, which used to be in Syria but is now occupied by Israel. And because of these canals, not only did the tension between Syria and Israel start increasing, but the situation had worsened so much that a war could start between Syria and Israel at any time. And from here, Egypt enters this story, because at that time, there was a mutual defense treaty under which if any country attacked Syria, it would be considered an attack on Egypt. And this was the time when Egypt was not only leading the Arab world, but Egypt's President Jamal Abdel Nasser was a hero for the people of the Arab world. And behind his charismatic leadership was his thinking, under which he was not only talking about uniting the entire Arab world, but also wanted to transform the Arab world into a secular state. And that is why at that time nationalism was at its peak in the Arab world. Not only this, Nasser was so popular at that time that not only did all the people of Palestine start looking at him with hope, but even Nasser's picture started being kept in front during worship and prayers. But later on, this heroic image of Nasser was not only going to cost Nasser dearly. Rather, the entire Arab world was going to pay a very big price for this, because just 22 days before the start of this war, that is on 14th of May 1967, Soviet intelligence gave a report to Nasser that Israel was going to attack Syria, and this was the moment from where the whole game of this war started. Because with the arrival of this news, Egypt not only deployed 3 Egyptian army divisions, that is 45,000 army soldiers, 300 tanks and other artillery units on the Israeli border in Sinai Peninsula, and this was Nasser's first move, to counter which Israel sent one of its army units to the border on 15th of May 1967, which is also Israel's Independence Day, and Israel sent only one of its divisions to the border. There were actually 3 reasons behind this. First one was Israel's Prime Minister Levi Eshkol was not in favor of war. Secondly, Israeli intelligence reported that Egypt would not attack, and thirdly, and the most important reason, was that at that time, there was another army standing between the Israeli army and the Egyptian army in the peninsula, and that was the United Nations peacekeeping force. Because about 9 years before 1967, in July 1956, Egypt nationalized the company operating the Suez Canal and took over the Suez Canal. Now, since the Suez Canal is the main supply route for Western oil supply. In October 1956, the joint forces of Israel, France and Britain not only attacked Egypt and took control of the Suez Canal, but the Egyptian army also faced defeat in this war. And then, due to the mediation of the United Nations, an agreement was reached under which not only the British and French armies were asked to leave that place, but the Israeli army was also ordered to retreat. Not only this, there were 2 main points in that agreement due to which both the parties won equally. First, Egypt will open the trade route of the Strait of Tehran for Israel, and second, the nationalization of the Suez Canal will be recognized with the condition that Egypt will not only allow all international shipments to pass through the Suez Canal, including Israeli shipments, but the United Nations peacekeeping force will also be stationed near the Suez Canal. The peacekeeping force of the United Nations was still present in Egypt in 1967. On 19th of May 1967, Nasser made his second move by not only ordering the United Nations to leave, but also closing the Suez Canal to Israeli shipments. Not only this, Nasser held a meeting with all the pilots of his air force in which the Egyptian army assured Nasser that they were fully prepared for war. This was the moment when the war was certain, because not only were all the trade routes of Israel closed, But now there was no peacekeeping force, and that is why Israel's army advisors advised Israel's prime minister to attack, but Israel's prime minister not only rejected that advice, but also immediately sent his foreign minister to Europe and America with the hope that they would mediate. And the trade route would be opened only through talks. But this is one of those few cases when America not only refused to intervene, but also told Israel that if Israel attacks first then America will not help. Not only this, the Soviet Union also clearly told Egypt that if it attacks first, then the Soviet Union will also not help Egypt. Therefore, whatever was to happen now had to happen between Israel and the Arab world. But two more countries were yet to enter this whole story, because when the entire Arab world was being united in the name of Arab unity, then Jordan, and how could Iraq stay behind? So King Hussein of Jordan and Iraq also made their sacrifice in this great sacrifice, by not only deploying their army on the Israeli border, but also declaring that if a war happens then the Jordanian army will fight under the leadership of the Egyptian army chief. Not only this, the Egyptian radio also started playing its game here. Because this was the time when Israel did not have its own radio station. And the people of Israel used to listen to Voice of Arab, which was an Egyptian radio station for entertainment. That is why the Egyptian radio not only started creating an atmosphere for war in Egypt, but also broadcasted in Hebrew, which is Israel's national language. So that panic could be created in Israel. And it had an impact because due to this, not only did processions start in the entire Arab world, but protests started inside Israel against the Prime Minister of Israel. Not only this, the people of Israel not only started calling their Prime Minister a weak Prime Minister, but there was a demand to remove him from the post. And due to this protest, Israel's Prime Minister Levi Eshkol decided to make Moshe Dayan the defense minister. Because Moshe Dayan not only had the image of a hero in the eyes of the people of Israel, but the people of Israel also knew about his bravery. There was also confidence, and here you should also know that Moshe Dayan was one of those people who led Israel to victory in the 1948 Israel-Arab War. And with Moshe Dayan becoming the defense minister, not only did Israel change its strategy, but now it was going to play offensive instead of defensive. Because till now all the moves were made by the Arab world, but now it was Israel's turn. So on the morning of the 5th of June 1967, Israel made its first move, and with this the Six-Day War started because on the morning of the 5th of June 1967, the Israeli Air Force made its first attack on the Egyptian Air Force. And this attack was so strong that within 3 hours, 280 fighter planes of the Egyptian Air Force, which had more than 300 fighter planes, were destroyed on the ground itself. And this attack was so devastating. The accuracy with which this attack was carried out can be gauged from the fact that the Israeli fighter jets were not visible on the Egyptian radar. Only 2 Israeli fighter jets were damaged during this attack, and one of them crashed only because the engine stopped working. But whatever it was, this attack broke the back of the Egyptian army. Because not only did the Egyptian army lose its air support, but the most modern air force of that region was destroyed without even firing a single bomb. This was no less than a shock. Not only did Nasser hide this from Jordan, but he also told the king of Jordan that the Egyptian Air Force had broken the back of the Israeli Air Force, and this was the right time for Jordan to send its air force and army forward. So when Jordan sent its air force and army forward, Israel not only destroyed Jordan's air force and army, but within just 4 days Israel had occupied the entire West Bank. Not only this, during this time when Egypt advanced its army, Israel not only destroyed the Egyptian army, but the entire Sinai Peninsula including the Gaza Strip came under Israeli occupation. However, here you should also know that West Bank is that area of Palestine, which was controlled by Jordan since 1948, and the control of Gaza Strip was in the hands of Egypt, and within these 4 days, not only all these areas were occupied by Israel, but the armies of Egypt and Jordan were no longer in a condition to fight, and that is why when Syria advanced its army, then Israel did not show any mercy, and the situation became such that Syria had to give up its land Golan Heights to save its army. Within 6 days not only the 3 largest armies of the Arab world were completely destroyed, but what no one had expected had happened. Not only this, after this war the whole of Palestine was under Israeli occupation. After this, in September 1967, the leaders of the Arab world held a meeting and came to the conclusion that there would be no negotiation, no peace agreement, and Israel would not be recognized. And since then the conflict between Israel and Palestine kept on increasing.